And I am honored to call upon the commander of the Israeli Air Force, Major General Amir Eshel. Could we have lights on in the hall so that we can see everyone? Much better. Good evening to everyone. I see Rona here. I don't see her, rather, but she's probably somewhere here. And the people of the Fisher Institute, my former commanders, Udi, and the guests from abroad, the people from the industry, from the diplomatic corps. Good evening. First of all, I'd like to thank you for this invitation to speak here this evening to Asaf and the Institute. And I'd like to thank you all for one more thing, for your ongoing work that you do. I think it's very important work. And this conference, which is also very important, not only in its content and the fact that it's being held, but also the impact that it has. Space is viewed, first of all, we're practical people, as an expanse, a dimension of significant opportunities. I'm speaking from a security aspect, and that's quite clear. But when we rise for a moment above the practical level, I think it's quite clear that there is yet another dimension that is a softer one, and it is no less powerful. It is the inspiration that it gives us, the ability to take people and nations and countries and on the way to conquer new areas, new dimensions, to rise above the day-to-day and reach areas that are beyond our imagination. I am proud that Israel is part of this very exclusive club. I'm proud as a citizen of Israel and also as a client. And the pride, we have pride in the state, in the people who take all these things, all these ideas, and turn them into reality, these things that we use in such an important way. The connection to space and the inspiration, if there is one human juncture that we can point to, there's one clear junction. Ilan Ramon, who was a friend, a commander, a fighter, a pilot, an astronaut. I can tell you that he was inspiring before he went into space. And in space, he brought it to new heights in all meanings. And I can say that I personally, it's not just an inspiration, it's a kind of mandate that he gave us. When I connect that to security, that has very important, very significant meaning for our lives, for our security, forever. Ilan said, he talked about how our tiny state looks from space. You all remember, it's engraved in our minds. I won't repeat them. A small state, everything looks tranquil and peaceful. So I haven't yet reached the heights that he was at, but from 50,000 feet it also looks very quiet and peaceful. But you all know that on Earth things look very different. And I'm not going to give a strategic survey, but I will touch on a number of things. We are involved in a period of historic changes in the Middle East. It's not new. The Air Force works almost every day in attack and defense from space to underground throughout the Middle East. And I can tell you one thing. There is not a single operation activity that we carry out near or far, in the air, on the ground, in attack or in defense, in which an element that has its source in space is not involved. Not a single operation. Not in the planning, or in real time, or both. And the worlds are very clear. This is the world of communications, of the net, of the TAC, of defense. There isn't a single operational action that the space is not involved in. I can tell you there are a lot of elements of all these worlds. I cannot imagine our capability to act in the absence of these capabilities, what I would call the space components. That's very, very clear. If you take those capabilities away from us, the Air Force immediately becomes handicapped, significantly handicapped compared to what it is today. I would like in my remarks to discuss 5 challenges, and I'm not going to get into these space components. I would like to discuss 5 challenges, main challenges that we are facing, and I will make the space connection at the end. First of all, the first challenge is that of being prepared, operationally prepared. The Middle East is undergoing great changes, that's obvious. There are a lot of directions that have positive potential. Not everything is bad. That should also be said. There are some positive directions as well. They may turn out not to be positive, but they certainly have the potential to be positive, at least in the short term. There is uncertainty in the long term, the matter of the Iranian nuclear plan, but what's happening with Iran also has, what's happening now with Iran has positive aspects. I'm not ruling that out. And in Syria, the disarming of weapons of mass destruction, that's very positive. And at this point in time, we have to see what's happening. We've seen upheavals, regimes rising, falling in a year, 180 degrees going back to the starting point, and so on and so forth. Why am I mentioning this? Because the Air Force is required to maintain its operational response to all the various range of scenarios. We cannot afford to gamble or interpret. We must provide relevant responses. Why? Because I said there's the short term and there's the long term. And the last one who tried to predict what would happen didn't succeed. And the questions are critical. There could be turning points that are positive, and that's no less important as options that involve these positive options and help those to realize them to take place, which is a positive thing, of course. And these answers must be polished, sharp, immediate, not like when people say, okay, we'll go to the drawer or the cupboard and we have to dust up things and it'll take another 3 months or 6 months until we can get to work. We don't have that luxury. It's too large of a margin of error time-wise. Our capabilities here too are not only to preserve, they are renewed daily. And once again, I don't want to connect it to space, but space plays a major role here. These things are renewed on a daily basis. We don't have solutions for everything, but our capabilities today compared to even a year or 2 years ago are different. And that's regarding preparedness. The second thing is competence. I'll explain. In the years that I served, the capabilities of the Air Force took many years to develop, and there are people here in this room who are responsible for the capabilities that developed over years. The capabilities, fire and intelligence capabilities of the IDF and the aerial capabilities are unprecedented compared to what we had in the past. This places a great responsibility on our shoulders, and the question remains, okay, so we have capabilities, so what do we do with them? These capabilities awaken, and they should, questions regarding the way, if we are required to find the best way to take advantage of these capabilities and perhaps to fight differently. I don't have time to give you a seminar on this subject, but I'll go back to what I said. The capabilities are unprecedented in scope. Our lethal attack capability in no way resembles what it was X years ago. In scope, it is far broader, in precision, in lethality, in everything that goes along with that. And that's relevant for our defense capabilities as well. And the test, I talked about competence, and that is to be able to exploit these capabilities. That is our test, and not only to make the most of them, but to pose the question, does this enable us a change, to make a change in the way, if we are forced to fight, the way we fight? Let me take a test case of Lebanon just for an example. We all have the fresh memory of the Second Lebanon War. I'm not going to talk about that, but if we look at the Second Lebanon War just in numbers, I'm not going to get into the numbers, our capability today, both intelligence and operational-wise, are multiples more than at that time. And it's not only in quantity, but it's also, we can look at a positive, very clear positive derivative. The accumulated capability and its potential is, in my opinion, almost impossible to conceive of. The other side isn't resting either, not at all. It is growing stronger in every area that we can imagine, whether it is surface-to-air missiles, whether it is surface-to-surface missiles and rockets in huge numbers, the direction of which is now to increase their distance and range and precision, and I'm sure they also want to use space to increase their precision with unmanned drones. We're talking about cruise missiles and so on and so forth. There's one very clear goal if we look at it, in my opinion. We're talking about a vector of some very, very significant years of their desire to offset our relative advantages, our relative edge, especially of the Air Force, and our naval capabilities and maneuvering capabilities, but mostly our aerial capabilities. That is one of their greatest problems, and that makes some very important, poses some very important challenges to UNTU. And there's no doubt that the situation as it's developing today is not the same as it was yesterday, and Lebanon of today, I'm talking from an aerial point of view, not a strategic point of view. It's not new. I'm not describing the next war. There can be thousands of scenarios. We will have to contend very aggressively with thousands of Hezbollah bases, thousands that are threatening the state of Israel, especially its home front. I'll tell you what this base looks like from space. It has no fence, it has no guard. It looks like a house, exactly like the houses when you go out here. Exactly. 1, 2, 3, 4 stories. It has a basement, and it's a base in every sense of the word. There is an apartment or a floor that has a door that is locked, and when the time comes, those who have to get there will get there. And above it or beneath it or both live civilians with whom we have no fight, nothing at all, a kind of human shield. And that is in Beirut and in South Lebanon and in Bekaa and thousands of such places. And from space, as I said, you don't see the guard and you don't see the fence, but you see a village or a city or a settlement of one kind or another. That's where the next war will occur. They will try to bring the war to the Israeli home front, and that's where we'll have to fight in order to stop it and to win. There are some very complex subjects that I won't get into. We talked about civilians, those who remain in those bases will simply be risking their lives, and those who leave will live. It's that simple. It won't be anything like in the past, because we don't intend to take off our gloves and to act according to different moral and ethical principles than in the past. We're proud of those principles, but the scope is going to be completely different. If you look at the amounts rather than the quality, I can tell you very simply, our capability today to attack targets with high precision is about 15 times greater than in the Second Lebanon War, and it's continuing to develop. We have a great defense challenge. Look, here too, we are very proud of our multi-level defense, the ability to intercept. There's nothing like it anywhere else in the world. It will be able to contend with a large number of missiles that may fly here. There is no hermetic seal or defense. Everybody understands that. And there will be casualties. It won't be sterile like Operation Defensive Cloud. It is a system that is developing, and the synergy between attack and defense is very, very important.
And when we look at it, once we used to say, okay, there are militaries, we fight militaries. There is terrorism, we fight terrorism. What is this? This is some kind of a terror organization which is like an army with better capabilities than many armies in the world. And it must be taken into account seriously on the one hand, but on the other hand, we mustn't paralyze ourselves after all. So our capabilities are far better than what I had pointed at. But war is the mother of all uncertainties and friction. But we must maintain our competence, the ability to make the best out of our potential, and in order to, if necessary, to make the war as short as possible and win as quickly as possible, because the more the war continues, the more missiles we will sustain, and that's not good. Now, another challenge is the war between wars. There's an everyday struggle over terrorism and the intensification of terrorism. And there are those people sitting in Iran with various messengers and proxies who are all around us, and they are feeding them against us. The way to deal with it is to deal with the risks before they evolve, rather than reach a situation where small-scale threat turns into a large-scale threat on the tactical and even not just on the tactical but also on the strategic level. This is a daily problem. It didn't start yesterday. It's not going to disappear tomorrow. Now, Air Force, the air capacity, has the flexibilities that none other has. And once a challenge comes up, the shortest time until you deal with it is by using the Air Force. It could be right here, or it could be 100 kilometers away, but the test of this between wars should be that the effectivity of actions taken will be immediate and will not lead us to war, will not make things worse. Now, air power, and this is no secret, at least when it comes to our Air Force, can be visualized as a very big, heavy hammer built for very big wars. And our big challenge is to turn it, or at least parts of it, as needed, turn it into a surgical scalpel that removes threats as they do in the operation theater, very quietly and in a pinpointed way before a whole epidemic starts. Why? Because, you know, if there are better tools, then obviously they must be used. But the thing is that this very big uncertainty around us makes threats pop up and erupt within a very short time. And the ability to build clandestine tools and instruments takes a long time, and we don't always have that time. And then that's when air power becomes relevant, extremely relevant. So the idea is to know how to use this big sledgehammer as one would use operating scalpel. And once you remove those threats, you create the right kind of deterrence. And if we have to operate during the next war or the next combat, maybe the challenges we'll face will be less threatening than they could have been. Two final challenges I'd like to relate to. And one has to do with the domestic issue, that of resources. And I'll say this very clearly. Israel has a military, will have a military, and it must be maintained strong and relevant. I don't think that, you know, some people think that the military thinks up threats in order to raise money. Our professional integrity doesn't allow us to do that. We have capabilities that we developed over the years, and we want to continue developing them. The thing is not to talk about tomorrow morning, but rather about the longer term, 10 years' time, lest we have to ask ourselves, what have we missed? Where have we gone wrong? And this is really very simple. At the end of the day, you can say that what we need is a multi-year plan in order for the military to continue developing and making progress. And we have many ways and thoughts and directions, and in order to start a space project and make it mature and come to fruition, that takes a long time. And if there is no horizon of resources, I'm talking about a horizon of resources, not talking about anything concrete at the moment, then obviously we can't do everything, and we'll have to prioritize. I'm talking about the entire idea of not just the Air Force, but talking about space and its potential. I think that it's clear to everyone that even though there aren't enough resources, still our space plan is homemade, and we don't have enough resources, but we still need a planning horizon which will allow us to come up with new plans. As of now, we don't have that. Hopefully we will this year. And the last thing I want to say, it may seem trivial, but it isn't. It is all the responsibility of people. Eventually, people with names, with faces, and our challenge is that we may have the best technologies and hopefully the best people to operate them, But the recent attack against professional soldiers and officers, I think, is completely irresponsible. I don't think that professional servicemen are the biggest problem we have. I'm not saying that the IDF shouldn't streamline. It should, and it's doing that. But I think that we have reached some very problematic places, and I'll put this very simply. Look, I look at it as the Air Force. The Air Force is a very small group of fighters. There's not a single one of them who could take off with a plane unless they have the technical personnel who will prepare it for him. And there's not a single base which will remain operational without the people supporting it. Now, okay, you can call them mediocre or whatever, and then they want to do it, and it doesn't matter if we have an F-35 or wonderful satellite, because we won't be able to gain anything out of it. And, you know, we're not forgetting that we are a defense force of a country, and we must streamline and we must do what the country wants. But I must tell you, as the commander of the Air Force, we are very efficient compared with other forces, and of course we are very efficient. It's easy to be able to say that. And we had a visit of a commander in the American Air Force, came to visit our squadron, F-15 squadron, and we showed it to him, and he asked, where are the people, where are the men? We said to him, here they are, they're here, but where are all of them? Here they are. The same squadron in the IDF, in the Israeli Air Force, is operated with less than a third of the people used in the US. I can tell you we are very efficient, and I'm willing to test the Air Force against every civil company, business company. You know, we were looked at by consultants and all kinds of people who look at other militaries and companies. You heard about McKinsey, I'm sure. I almost blushed at some of the things that they said about the Air Force. Not everything is good. But they said about many things that we are employing the world best practice. So going back to the people, the personnel, the best people, we must have them. Without them, no technology will help. And I think there's some kind of dissonance between the state and the military recently. I don't know if it's really the state. It might be all kinds of mouthpieces. But going back to where I started, there's a huge operational potential in space that we can see in the Air Force, because we span across the spectrum from the top to the bottom with the greatest immediacy. There's a lot that still can be done. There's a lot of potential to tap yet. And I think that what I'm saying is really trivial. In order to meet the challenges, of course, of the present and definitely of the future, space and space capabilities for the Israeli Air Force are critical in order to maintain it or to keep it relevant in face of all the threats that we've heard about recently. I would like to say that, yes, we do have certain capabilities, and they're quite significant. Our attack and defense capabilities have been redoubled and even trebled. I'm not worried about tomorrow morning. I am, but I'm more worried about years ahead. I'm standing here and I'm using the certain capabilities that some of the people sitting here were the ones who started them many years ago. And we, as a nation, you know, with all our history, can't just afford to get up in the morning and say, oops, we've forgotten about this or that. We must create a certain compass of resources which will generate plans and make it possible to implement them. And we must look after our personnel recognize them, give them the right sort of treatment, because without them, we're only worth half than what we are. So much for my point of view, for the Air Force's point of view. Of course, I didn't drill down into the specific details, which are very significant from every point of view, but this is just as an overview from not a bird's eye view, but rather a space shuttle's eye view. This is what it looks like. Any questions to the Air Force commander? I don't want to be blunt, but are you aware of what's going on around you? The question was whether there are any plans to expand the Air Force activity in space. There are all kinds of directions, and you asked about manpower. Well, these are all kinds of questions that have to do with the arrangements within the military. Once we're done with this, there will be the personnel. Please remind the speaker to repeat the questions, because the interpreters can't hear them. The Chief of Intelligence said today 170,000. A court of law, whether I admit... Okay, let me repeat the question. I was asked whether I admit to the failure of not being able to stop the 100,000 missiles, Hezbollah missiles. No, I do not admit to that. I'll put it simply. Look, it's not simplistic. I think it's quite a complex question. Let me answer in a very basic sort of way. It didn't start yesterday. These are very long processes. I think that you are aware of the changes that have taken place in Syria, the stronger connection now between Syria and Hezbollah. I don't think that it should be measured in the number of missiles. 100,000 is bad and 90,000 is good. There are issues here. And there's a very broad spectrum. All kinds of things should not be in certain places. And you ask yourself, at the end of the day, when looking into it, you ask yourself, what should be focused on, how much risk should we take on, what kind of solutions do we have today, and what solution will you have tomorrow? And I think the answer is complex. It's not a matter of failure. This is not the way you test it. I think that Israel has exceptionally good deterrence, and it shouldn't be belittled. It's very significant, and it was bought in blood. And there are others who talk about divine victories and stuff like that, but they don't see the sun very often. And there are many other things. You know, the reality is a little bit more complex than a shopping list full of numbers. It is not a threat to be looked down on. However, Israel has very strong capabilities, and compared to what we used in the past, they are changing very significantly and are gaining more strength. And I suggest that all those looking at us should take into account not only our capabilities, but also our determination to use them if necessary. Other questions? I've used my deterrence, apparently. I'm not talking in terms of results, I'm talking about trends. I said that in the short term, this kind of process taking place, where inspectors get to Iran, dismantling centrifuges, taking material and all kinds of things, is positive in the short term. I don't know where it's going in the long term. It could turn around, it could change altogether. Now, I don't know what you mean by take your foot off the gas pedal. Let me restate what you said. Well, we must provide relevant and effective operational capabilities, and we must have them available 24/7, 365. Can anyone tell what's going to happen here the day after tomorrow? No. It's very easy to take your foot off the gas. It happens immediately. Turn off is something that you do immediately. However, to rebuild, that's something that takes a long time. And we have a lot of experience, and we know that time is not always on our side, and therefore we must be prepared. And the table must be stable with all the options on it. This is our job. I'm talking about the Air Force as a defending force and also as an attacking force. And all options are relevant and are on the table. Thank you very much. I would like to thank you very much, Commander, for what you said, and I would like to remind you all that we expect to see you here tomorrow morning for the second day of this conference. Have a good evening.